Hi, I'm Kristen Amdahl and welcome back to my studio. In these videos, I want to show you some tips and tricks for making the Larissa Crochet Motif Scarf. This beautiful scarf is a one-ball project. It is a simple one-round motif that is joined as you go without cutting yarn between motifs. It works up quickly with only 2 ends to weave in at the end and makes a fantastic last-minute gift. You will need 300 yards of number 2 sport weight yarn, a G6 or 4mm crochet hook, yarn needle, and scissors. The project shown is in Sporty BLING yarn in color Meteor Shower. In the first video, I showed you how to begin the first row of motifs, join them as you go without cutting yarn between motifs, and now in this video, I'm going to show you how we start the second row of motifs, and in the second row and all rows of motifs going forward, we'll not only be making them like we did down here, but we're also going to be joining them to the row below with slip stitches as well. So let's start at the beginning of the first motif here, and it starts in blue. It's chain 9, slip stitch to the 5th chain from your hook to form the chain 5 ring, chain 3, slip stitch to the 3rd chain, leaving that 9th or 1st chain unworked, double crochet in the ring, chain 3, and 3 double crochet cluster in the ring. That's all we'll be doing for the first partial completion of the first motif of the second row of motifs. So I'll show you how to do that with the yarn now. Chain 9, slip stitch to the 5th chain from your hook, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, this doesn't seem right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Slip stitch to the 5th chain from your hook to form a ring. Chain 3. Slip stitch into the 3rd chain from your hook, leaving that last chain unworked. Working over those chains, now work a double crochet in the ring. And those first 2 chains plus the double crochet are the equivalent of our first 3 double crochet cluster, chain 3, and 3 double crochet cluster in the ring. 3 double crochet clusters, yarn over your hook, insert your hook in the ring, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and do that 2 more times. And yarn over, pull through all 4 loops on your hook. And I'll set this down so you can see what it looks like at the end of the first motif, or the partial completion of the first motif. So you can see it looks similar to what it looks like here. It's very partially completed. And now we're ready to begin the next motif, which starts with a chain 9, slip stitch to the 5th chain from your hook, chain 3, slip stitch into the 3rd chain, leaving that last chain unworked, double crochet in the ring. Then it's chain 3, 3 double crochet cluster in the ring, and slip stitch to the adjacent motifs cluster stitch. Chain 3, 3 double crochet cluster in the ring, slip stitch to the next motif's adjacent 3 double crochet cluster, then chain 3 and another 3 double crochet cluster in the ring. Notice how these are on these slip stitches are on different motifs as well. That's also important, and I'll show you that when we get there. So just before we get started, we're going to slip stitch to this cluster stitch first, then slip stitch to this cluster stitch next, and then do our next cluster stitch without joining. Okay, so we'll start with a chain 9, slip stitch to the 5th chain to form our ring, chain 3, slip stitch to the 3rd chain, making sure you leave that last chain unworked, working over those chain spaces, work a double crochet in the ring, chain 3, 3 double crochet cluster in the ring, okay, now we want to line this up with our motifs. So we're going to be slip stitching to the adjacent motif on the first motif below, then chain 3, coming back to our working motif, 3 double crochet cluster in the same chain 5 ring, then setting our work down, you want to make sure that you're going to the next motif and the next cluster stitch for joining. So we'll slip stitch in this cluster stitch now. Then chain 3 and one more cluster stitch in the chain 5 ring, and one more cluster stitch in the chain 5 ring, and now we have the second motif partially completed on the second row of motifs, and we've also joined it to 2 adjacent motifs at the cluster stitches, just like it shows on the chart right here. So this is the motif that we will repeat for however many multiples you're doing for your project. For this particular scarf, it would be 28 of the middle one because it's 30 motifs wide. And this is obviously a reduced size sample, but I'm doing a second multiple of the middle motif just to show you that that is the one that you would repeat. There's always going to be a first motif at the beginning of a row and a last motif at the end of the row, and you can repeat this one as many times as you want. So I'm going to do a second motif of that middle motif again. Okay, so now we have our second repeat of the middle motif done. And also notice that as we're doing this, because it's offset, sometimes there's going to be a motif in between the last 2 motifs, and then other times there'll be one extending out. So for this row 2 of motifs, notice that our last motif will just be joined in the middle between these 2, and then we'll start coming back around and finishing off the tops of the motifs till we get to partially doing the first motif. So the last motif on the row 2, which would be motif 60 if you're doing the scarf, is a chain 9, slip stitch to the 5th chain from your hook to form the ring, chain 3, slip stitch in the 3rd chain, skipping that last chain, double crochet in the ring, chain 3, cluster stitch in the ring, slip stitch to the adjacent motifs, cluster stitch, chain 3, 3 double crochet cluster in the ring, slip stitch to the adjacent motifs, cluster stitch, then chain 3 cluster times 3, chain 3, and single crochet in the first chain at the beginning of the round, and that completes motif 60. So let's do that with the yarn now. Chain 9, slip stitch to the 5th chain from your hook to form the ring, chain 3, slip stitch to the 3rd chain, making sure that you leave that last chain unworked. Then working over those chains, we'll work a double crochet in the ring, chain 3, 3 double crochet cluster in the ring, then slip stitch to the next adjacent motifs, cluster stitch, chain 3, 3 double crochet cluster in the ring, then slip stitch to the next motifs, cluster stitch, chain 3, 3 double crochet cluster in the ring, and we'll do that 2 more times. Chain 3, single crochet in the skipped chain 1 space at the beginning of the round, and now we have completed the last motif at the end for row 2. So now you want to complete the partially made motifs in the middle of the second row of motifs, and how we do that is following in red, chain 3, 3 double crochet cluster in the ring times 2, chain 3, and single crochet in the chain 1 space at the beginning of the round. So we did 2 middle motifs, so we're going to do that 2 times. Chain 3, 3 double crochet cluster in the chain 5 ring, times 2, chain 3, and single crochet in the first chain at the beginning of the round to join. We'll do that a second time. Okay, and then we will refer back to our chart again to see how much we will be partially completing the first motif. Remember, we're only partially completing this one even at the end of the round, because it's not till we finish the entire project that we will come down and work the finishing portion of the first column of motifs. So it's going to be chain 3, 3 double crochet cluster in the ring, and from there we can move on to blue for the next row of motifs. So let me show you how we do that. Chain 3 and 3 double crochet cluster in the ring. And this is what your work should look like at this point at the end of the second row of motifs. In the third video, I'll show you how we work the third row of motifs. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions at all about anything we talked about in this video, please leave them for me in the comments. Let us make time to create, share, and inspire today and every day. I'll see you in the next video.